they either don't have it or it's still more than I'm willing to pay, because it's not a priority series. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessie, and today we are doing the anti-TBR tag. I first saw Peace, Love, and Books do this tag, but the tag was created by Nicole and her books, so I will have her channel linked in the description box and in the info cards for anyone who is interested in checking her out and seeing the original. And before we get started with the questions for this tag, I just want to give you a friendly reminder to please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to make finding my channel a little bit easier. Anyways, now on to the first question. So first, what is a popular book that everyone loves that you have no interest in reading? And for me, that would technically be a series, which is the ACOTAR series, and more specifically, A Court of Silver and Flames by Sarah J. Maas that just came out. I read the first ACOTAR book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it was fine, but I didn't like it. And then I heard, what all happens in the second and third books and the novella. And I've heard enough about the fourth book that I am interested, but I think it's just the hype. And so I don't think I'm genuinely interested. I think I just don't want to be left out. And so I don't think I'll actually be reading that series, especially because I didn't love the first book. And so when I don't love the first book in a series, it's a little bit less likely that I will continue reading it. And I'm not saying I'll never read it, but I find it highly unlikely at this point that I will pick up any of the A Court of Thorns and Roses books. The next question is, what is a classic book or author that you don't have any interest in reading? And I would say most classic books and authors. Last year in 2020, I made it a goal to read, I think, 6 classics. I think I made it through 3 or 4, and I kind of found out I'm not interested in classics. I wish I was, but I'm genuinely not interested at all. As much as I think I want to, I don't actually want to whenever I start reading them, and I have to struggle through them, and I'm not actually genuinely interested after I start. And so I think I will not purposely be reading any classics. If you want one specific example though, the first one that came to my mind earlier was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I have read before. I read it in high school, and I don't see the hype about, mostly reading about rich people who have very few consequences. I know that's not the whole story. That's just the main thing I remember. It's just mostly rich people partying and Gatsby pining after this one woman who's married, and I didn't like it then, and I have no interest in reading it. And also just most classics I'm not interested in reading in general. Next, who is a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading? And I don't really keep up with authors and stuff. It's not that I have a hard time. I think most stuff happens on Twitter, and so I'm not on Twitter very often, and so I miss a lot of stuff. But one specific author that came to my mind was Ellen Hilderbrand. I don't really know any of her books, but I remember at the end of 2020, someone made an Instagram book review of her books, and they didn't tag her, but they used the book title as a hashtag and maybe the author's name as a hashtag. So the author was either searching her name or searching her books, the hashtags, and she found a review of someone who didn't really like the book, and she kind of, I guess, griped at the person who posted the review about why would you leave bad negative reviews in a time like this, and there was a lot more to it, I think, at the time. But I don't know, anyone who gets upset over someone leaving a negative review that you purposely sought out is a little silly in my opinion. I mean, it's important for book reviewers to obviously hype up the books they love, but also they need to be credible, and to be credible you also need to be honest about the books you didn't love too. And so I don't know, it's that rubbed me the wrong way. I'm sure there's other authors that I will add to my mental list at some point, but Ellen Hilderbrand is the first one that comes to mind for me. The next one is an author who you've read a couple of books from, but you've decided their books are not for you. And this is one I had to really think about, but I think I'm gonna have to say John Green. John Green was my favorite author at one point in my life. I loved all of his books, but I recently, in the past 2 or 3 years, read Turtles All the Way Down, and I reread The Fault in Our Stars. And while The Fault in Our Stars will always hold a special place in my heart, neither book lived up to what I wanted it to be, and I think I outgrew him. And so John Green is an author who will probably always hold a special place in my heart, and I don't see myself unhauling any of his books that I own anytime soon, but I also don't see myself in the future reading any of his new books. So next is a genre you have no interest in, or a genre you've tried but couldn't get into, and for me that would be sci-fi. I am so intimidated by sci-fi, and I have no desire to really read sci-fi for the most part. I don't know why sci-fi intimidates me so much. I mean, I love a good fantasy, I like contemporary, I like romance. Those are I like thrillers and mysteries, but just sci-fi do not want to attach for the most part. Like, I'm interested in the Aurora Rising books. I can't remember the author's name. But I have been a little scared and hesitant to read them or buy them because I can't find them in Scribd or my library, so I'd have to buy them. And I've been hesitant on buying them because I know that for the most part, I'm not very interested in sci-fi. And I know that I actually don't like sci-fi very much. And so even though I'm interested in those books, I don't want to read them yet because I don't want to be let down by the sci-fi part. Or like, I don't want to go into a book knowing that I dislike this huge element of it. And so going into a book knowingly with a high chance of giving it a poor rating because I'm not into something that plays a big part of it, like the genre. So next is a book you have bought and will never read. And this can be something that you've already unhauled or something that you rented from the library and returned without reading it. And for me, this book with books 5 through whatever of the House of Night series. I have books 1 through 4, and I think books 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 on my shelf already of the House of Night series, because at one point a couple years ago, I wanted to reread the first 4 books, which I've already reread several times, and then read the rest of the series. And then I don't want to pay full price for the 5th book. And so every time I've looked, for somewhere to buy the book cheaper, they either don't have it or it's still more than I'm willing to pay because it's not a priority series. But it's looking more and more like I'm not ever going to read the books. And so while I won't say I will never read the series, I will say that it's highly unlikely that I will ever get around to finishing the House of Night books by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, I believe. Like, I loved the first 4 books at the time that I read them whenever I was 12. They were important to me then because of the time in my life whenever I read them. But I know that they have not really stood the test of time. They're full of stereotypes. They're kind of written in that very conversational tone of like, the early 2000s. I don't know how to describe the tone, but to where it almost feels cheesy. And so the more I think about it, the series is kind of outdated and it's highly unlikely that I will ever get around to finishing it. And I don't know, I have all the books on my shelf, just about, except for, book 5 and then maybe the last 3 or 4. I don't know, it's a massive series last time I checked. But I don't think I'll ever get around to finishing the ones I own. Next is a series you have no interest in reading or a series you have started and DNF'd. And for me, this will be A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I picked up the first book, I think last April, and whenever I heard it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then at that point I didn't know that it was a series. I thought it was just a standalone. And so I bought it, I read it, it was okay, but I didn't love it. And it was one of those books where, if I happened to get a chance to read the second book on Libby or Scribd, I'd give it a try, but I wasn't going to go out and buy the book or anything. And the ebook for A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kimmerer, the second book in the series, ended up on Scribd. I started the ebook and I think I DNF'd it somewhere around a quarter of the way through. I didn't like how the book followed, it didn't follow the same points of view as the first book. And I don't mind when new points of view are added, but not whenever you do that and take away the POVs from the first book. And I didn't like where the story was going. I felt like Harper and Ren were not the same characters they ended up being at the end of the first book. And I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really like it. And so at this point in time, I have no intention of finishing that series at all. And then lastly, what is a new release you have no interest in reading? And for me, that would be The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This was one of the Book of the Month picks, and I really did think about picking it until I read the summary. And the way the summary is written, it kind of looks like it might have time travel. And so I know I've read 2 books in the past year or so where I know for sure I do not like time travel or time loops. I don't mind whenever, like the book takes place where most of the book is told in the future or in the present, and then there's like some time jumps to the back, like time jumps where the character's like reflecting or something, but it's not as if the character has physically gotten a machine and time traveled, or the character is put in a time loop against their will. I don't like time machines or time loops, and that's kind of what it sounds like it might be happening in this book. Like there might be some time travel, and I don't want to do the time travel. It's not for me. I'm not interested in it. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll probably wait a few months and see what happens then. But at this point in time, I have no interest in The Lost Apothecary. Anyways, those were all the questions in the tag. I really don't want to say that I'll never read any of these books because my mind could change. Maybe, I would say like Ella and Hildebrand's books, I'm the least likely out of everything on this list to read, just because I don't like the way she behaved at one point. Maybe she'll earn a second chance later on. Who knows? But at this point in time, these are books that primarily I'm not interested in right now, and I don't see myself becoming interested in, but things could change over time. So please don't, if you ever see me reading these books, like, in a few months to a year, please don't take it too seriously. But anyways, this was a fun little tag, and I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. Bye.